Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Our webinar is awesome. We have so many people that registered, and we really appreciate that. This is going to be excellent to take a look at what's going to be happening with following claims. I hope you don't have to file any, but hurricane season is coming, and we had such a good year last year. I am worried, but anyway, I'll let Gil pick up on that deal. I am Peggy West. I am your host for today. I run and organize the webinars for everybody. I just want to say a few things about housekeeping. First of all, managers, CAMs, your license will get credits posted within 2 weeks. So please wait 10 days, 14 days tops, and Gil and his team will get those posted. From Altieri. I don't do it. I get a lot of emails about it, but all the presenters that give these classes, they are responsible according to the DBPR. I want to mention that Gil is being very generous. He's letting us record this as well as he will send out the slides afterward. I probably will send those out with the sponsor sheet when I introduce the sponsors. Don't take notes. You don't have to kill yourself to take notes because the information, how to reach them, will be on the sponsor sheet. With that said, I'm going to get started here introducing the sponsors. I'm going to start with Vinteum Software. Vinteum is the wind beneath my wings, running the whole show for me today. Technically, we have Miss Julia Franca up there. She is the wind behind the scenes. And we also have Laura. Laura, tell us about Vinteum, what you're doing for condos, and about yourself.
Thank you, Peggy. My name is Laura. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. So I am a sales executive here at Vinteum. We are a company that provides software and basically services for residential management. We help not only, HOAs or condominiums, but we also partner with property management companies, property managers, and we also help cooperatives within the state of Florida to be compliant and to have, a platform that can help their jobs easier. So we will build a website for you. So if any of you guys have not yet built a website for your community, this is your opportunity to, make that happen. With the best team, we will build a website. We will also provide you with the residents portal so you guys can, manage communications, amenities reservation, incidents and violations, which I know are super important, and service requests within just one single platform. We will build a website, the portal for you will go, with you throughout the process, and we also provide training and ongoing support. So if you guys are interested, if you guys have not yet, fully be compliant to the new Florida updates that already hit this 1st of January this year, you guys can contact us. We will send you all of our contact info within the chat, and I'll be more than happy to help you all. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Absolutely. And ladies, again, I can't thank you enough. I do want to announce that next Tuesday, Vinteum is having a private webinar just to let you guys know how easy it is to run a website. So it's free to attend, and you will learn about their sites and how they operate. But in general, you'll get a good feeling about how easy it is. So don't be afraid to get a website. Next, I want to introduce, or I was going to, Daniel Baum. He is my awesome moderator for today and the founder and CEO of COA Solutions. Daniel, tell us about what's going on with your company.
Thanks, Peggy. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Baum. I'm the founder of COA Solutions. I specialize in helping communities with their commercial property and casualty insurance. So this is definitely a topic near and dear to my heart that we deal with every day. The way I like to put it is my job is to help you find ways to reduce the cost of your insurance by reviewing your documents, reviewing your policies, looking at what your coverages are, or what might be missing, making sure you don't have any errors on your documentation, because I see that all the time that cause people tens of thousands of dollars in loss or in additional premium that they don't have to be paying. So that's what I do for my clients. It's been a pretty interesting year. Most of you, if not all of you, should have seen a reduction on your property policies. To Peggy's point, we had a really, really good year last year with multiple new carriers coming into the market and no major catastrophes that caused major loss for the carriers. So property coverages came down. We have seen an increase in expenses and premium on directors and officers policies and even on some umbrella policies and some crime policies, mainly because of issues that have gone on throughout the state of Florida. I'm sure you guys have all read about people that may have stolen from communities or board members that may have siphoned off funds. Obviously, that's a rare few that do it, but the ones that do cause us all more expense, and we see it in our premiums. So if you're looking for insurance, if your insurance is coming up soon and you just want another opinion, I'm happy to do it for you. Nothing to sign. Just give me a holler, let me know you'd like me to do that for you. I'll put my information in the chat. And I look forward to moderating the webinar today. So thank you very much, Peggy, and back to you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Next, I want to introduce Shawnee Haas from Munyon. Munyon, Shawnee, tell us what you do at Munyon and what's going on there.
So I'm the marketing manager with Munyon. We have been in business for 75 years. We're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. We are third generation owned and operated, and we cover all of your painting needs, whether it's interior painting, exterior painting, commercials, HOAs, condos. We pretty much do it all. If you can put paint on it, we can paint it. We also offer free estimates. So if you were looking to get a painting project done anywhere, even in the next like 1 to 2 to even 3 years, we can come out, take a look at your property and provide you a bid. Or even just like a proposal to take back to your board and see like how much that project's going to cost you down the line.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. And they also have a very unique service where they can go around and do electrostatic painting to your railings. And that is a need, especially if you're on the ocean or on the water directly. I know that breaks down a lot. So keep that in mind as well. Thank you so much. Want to now introduce Siobhan Gonzalez. She is the representative for Vinteum. I'm sorry, for United Professional Engineering. I need another cup of coffee, don't I, Siobhan? Tell us what you're doing. I know you've been very busy. You're doing great things there. And what is United doing?
Thank you so much, Peggy. Cheers, everyone. My name is Siobhan Gonzalez, business developer at United Professional Engineering. So we are a full-service structural engineering firm. What I value so much about what we do is we've been specializing in condominiums for over 20 years. So we do all things phase 1, phase 2, milestone, concrete restoration, building recertification. If you have a roof replacement coming up and you'd like an engineer to oversee that, we also do that as well as building envelope, parking garage, all the things. So we're here for you. We want to be that resource for you. I would say what I'm enjoying most right now, that what we're doing here is the opportunity to connect with property managers and boards, and we are doing these proposal consultations that have been extremely valuable. We're going on site to the associations, walking the property with the board and the manager, helping them identify the real issues that they're having, giving them clarity on, this is something that can wait, but I would advise your attention over here. It's been really impactful, really meaningful. If you need something like that at your association or you're unsure, feel free to contact me directly. I will provide my cell phone number in the chat, and make it a great weekend.
Okay, awesome. Okay. I also just want to mention there's a couple of sponsors here that are not here today, and they're in the order here. I have Hafer CPA Services. They are a full audit company with 4 offices around the state, but they will be on the sponsor sheet. Also, I don't believe Dawn is on. Dawn Miller from the Paving Lady. They're very active right now. A lot of bids going on. She is swamped. Next, I want to introduce Jamie Gelfand from First Citizens Bank. Contact her. She's got a lot of people, her team supporting her getting your loans ready. If you need any additional cash or lines of credit, or project cash, reach out to Jamie. She will also be on the list. Now that leads me up to, I have the pleasure of introducing Dylan Pina from PD Concrete. So Dylan, tell us about yourself and what you're doing there at PD.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Peggy. So my name is Dylan Pena. I'm the business developer for PD Concrete Specialist. We've been serving South Florida for well over 20 years now. Most importantly, we specialize in concrete restoration, waterproofing, and post-tension cable repair. We also assist with the recertification process for your condominium buildings to ensure they're compliant and safe. One thing that does set us apart, though, is that we do not use subcontractors. We only use our in-house team for all of our repair work to ensure accountability and quality work for every step of the way. We operate out of 2 locations, with one in Aventura and one in West Palm Beach. If you have any questions, I'll be leaving my information in the chat box below, and thank you very much.
You're certainly welcome, and please give my best to your dad.
Of course.
Next, I want to mention Ben Friedman from City Quiet Windows and Doors. Again, they have a couple offices around the state, very active with the construction going on right now. I will put Ben's information on the sponsor sheet. Please reach out for him and get that second or third bid, or maybe the first bid, because he is really good at what he does. He's been around for 20 years. Next, I want to introduce Rick Hogan from Velocity Services. They do large loss restoration projects. They have an office in Tampa, but they do service the whole state, and they're going to be shortly having an office over here on the East Coast as well. So when the fit hits the shan, so to speak, reach out to Rick Hogan. Next, I want to introduce Diana Olert, who's on today from Best Roofing. Okay, Beauty, tell us what you're doing and what's going on.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to be here with you today. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Best Roofing. I don't know if you don't know me, but if you don't, I would love to meet you. And this is a company that has been in business for 47 years now, and we do absolutely anything and everything you need in roofing, from a simple question, inspection, maintenance program, little repair, to the biggest project that you could have. We also love to help you with any questions that you have. So if at some point you are thinking about a project for your roof, but you have many questions, please bring us on board. Even for the questions, we'll be more than happy to go to your board meetings, help you as like one of the professionals on roofing to make the decision that you need. Again, our point is to educate our community to the point that they know exactly what is the decision they have to make. Out there, unfortunately, is a lot of roofers that take advantage of people not knowing exactly what they're offering them. And we want to be sure that you don't make a decision that you're going to regret, because this is a huge investment that you're going to have for a long term. So let's better have someone that guides you through it and helps you to make the best decision. I'm going to put all my information on the chat box, and thank you so much for being here today.
Okay, thank you very much. That was excellent. All right, next, I just want to mention that we do have Faster.io as one of our sponsors. They are a streaming company, and they are taking over Florida, South Florida, West Coast of Florida with their services. You've got to talk to them, take a bid, and you will reach out to Bob Aleka on the sponsor sheet. Then I have Kaiser Air Conditioning. Kaiser has been in business for 25 years, I believe. They have 100 trucks, primarily in the East Coast, South Florida area. You will reach out to Paulo, the owner there, on the sponsor sheet. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing Damaris Cabrera. Damaris, I see you on here from Clarkson and Varick Elevator Consultants. Damaris?
Thank you, Peggy. Good morning,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you for having us. Yes, my name is Damaris Cabrera. I apologize. Today I'm on the road, so I don't have the camera open. We are a national elevator consulting firm dedicated exclusively to support the owners, bringing the expertise about the elevators to the table. We are not contractors. We don't perform any kind of service. We're 100% consultants. Our role and our goal is to provide 100% unbiased oversight, whether it's reviewing their performance, the maintenance performance, managing the modernization project, developing a long-term capital plan, or guiding the boards and primarily guiding the boards and the managers through these very decision-making process with clarity and confidence. We believe in education, so we truly like to meet with the boards and break it down in a way that everybody has the information, has clarity on it, and can make decisions, educated decisions with confidence. Choosing the right company, like we think that there's nothing more important than to support the ownership and the property managers and everybody to have confidence because the elevators, as Diana said, and everybody is contributing here, all these assets for the buildings are so expensive. And when the investment is made and the decision in selecting the contractor, you're going to live with that for years. So this is what we want to do. We want to support that process. So I will put my contact information and thank you, Peggy. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Very good. Sounds like you're an owner's rep for elevators. Okay. Next, I want to introduce the elevator company that actually does the installs and the service from Southwest Elevators. Brandy, you want to say a few words about your company, please?
Yes, hi everyone, and I also am on the road heading to our Tampa location, so my camera is also off. But Southwest Elevator is a third generation family owned and operated elevator company. I'm actually the fourth generation coming in, but we do everything from maintenance, modernization, any type of repair you may need. Happy to give any free complimentary surveys on repairs, or if you just need a second opinion. Um, Maintenance is what we pride ourselves on. We stand out because we do true monthly maintenance. I'm sure a lot of your providers you're not actually seeing monthly, so that helps us stand out amongst the rest. But I'll put some information in the chat. We have an office here in Fort Lauderdale that services the Tri-County. We have an office in Tampa, in Orlando, and we're going to be launching in Naples within the next month. So anywhere you
great.
need, let us know. But I'll put some information, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Congratulations. Okay, next let me mention a relatively new sponsor that I'm working with, the Pool Scientist. This company, the owners are highly educated. You would reach out to Ricardo Gallion. Ricardo is specialized in identifying any bacteria or issues in your pool itself, not just servicing it, but he does that also. If you have any concerns at all, or you just want to take a look at a new style of taking care of your pool on your property, reach out to him because he's doing an awesome job working with larger businesses like the YMCA, etc. So Ricardo is on the sponsor sheet. Next, I want to introduce Allenack Railings. Allenack is a manufacturer of railings, and then we have Munyon who does the actual painting and so on. But Allenack has been around for a while as well, working with general contractors and very reliable, very responsible. The owner is very involved, and you would reach out to either Guillermo or his daughter, Natalia, and they are also on the sponsor sheet. And lastly, just to mention, I do have a website trying to connect all my sponsors and vendors with board members and managers for new contacts since you're now having to take three bids. It's FloridaCondoVendorsForYou.com, which will also be on the sponsor sheet. Now, last thing I want to mention, because a lot of you get carried away here, questions go into the Q&A, not the chat box. Please put your questions in Q&A because we do record the questions, but we don't record the chat box. So thank you so much for your cooperation. I'm going to turn this over to Gil Shalmon. He's our instructor today from Altieri. They are insurance consultants doing public adjusting. Gil, take it away, and I'll let you and Daniel work together on this.
Hey, Gil, if I may, let me just do a quick intro for you.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. As I mentioned, this is a topic very near and dear to my heart, and I know Gil's as well. I am absolutely thrilled to have Gil as our speaker today. Gil and I have worked together a few times, and he's truly a professional to work with. He is the Regional Director and Business Development and a licensed public insurance adjuster with Altieri Insurance Consultants, who are a leading public adjusting firm committing to advocating for commercial and residential property owners. Gil brings a unique blend of expertise in insurance claims and strategic communication. Before joining Altieri in 2020, he built a strong background in business development and marketing, working with major professional sports organizations and Live Nation before transitioning into public adjusting to better serve policyholders. At Altieri, Gil plays a key role in public messaging and industry engagement, helping clients navigate complex claims processes and ensuring their interests are protected. Today, he'll be sharing insights that are vital for anyone involved in property management, risk mitigation, or claims handling. So please join me in welcoming Gil, and I'll turn it over to you. Oh, I'm sorry, one quick note. Gil will be taking questions while he's doing his presentation. So just a reminder, as Peggy said, please put your questions in the Q&A box. We will not be monitoring the chat, but I will be looking at the Q&A and asking Gil questions from there. So now, one last time, over to you, Gil.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction, Daniel. Couldn't give a better bio myself. So I appreciate the warm welcome. And as Daniel said, we've worked together in the past on some claims and reviewing some policies and just trying to take care of policyholders. So if you have any questions about your policies or renewals, definitely reach out to Daniel or myself, and we can kind of get you squared away as you're trying to buy new coverages. But yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna share my screen here real quick. And obviously, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll answer them as best as I can. And as we go through this, most of the examples that I'm going to be giving are geared towards hurricanes, but most of the stuff is applicable to your day-to-day events that you may deal with at your association. So we're talking about pipe breaks and fires. Most of the information is relevant to those situations as well. So, I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. Feel free to put those in the chat. So, let's get started. To give you a little bit of background about our company, Daniel did a good job kind of laying it all out there. We're corporately based in Tampa. We've been in business since 1988. We're licensed in 30 plus states. I am licensed in 7. So we travel around the country for storm work, but our home base and bread and butter is here in Florida. We have an office in Tampa, Ocala, one here in Fort Lauderdale that I'm based out of. It's myself and 2 other gentlemen, Pete Sawizrell and Steve Mason. I kind of handle the South Florida region. We are very involved in the state and national lobbying efforts to represent the interest of insurance policyholders on a state level and nationwide level. The legislation that passed a few years ago could have been much, much worse had our guys not been working with FAPIA to meet with Jimmy Petronis, the CFO, behind the scenes to make sure some of the stuff they were trying to bury in that legislation did not get passed. It could have been much, much worse. The founder of our company was chosen as the first president of the Florida Association of Public Adjusters, and also served later as the president of National Association of Public Adjusters. One of our founding board members, his son Frank, is the current president of the Florida Association of Public Adjusters, and the past president of the National Association also works for us. So we are very plugged in to what these insurance companies are, trying to pass through legislative efforts, and we always stand up for what we believe is right for the insurance policyholder, but also to make sure that other public adjusters are acting ethically and passing all their licensing requirements and acting in good faith, because a couple bad actors ruin the whole bunch, as they like to say. So part of the reason that we exist, I think everyone has seen some of these headlines or the 60 Minutes segment. Not to go too much into bashing insurance companies, but after large scale disasters, these people are human. They send adjusters out. They have a very large caseload. They're overworked, sometimes underpaid. So, you are one of 100 people in their queue line of claims to handle. So when they get out to a property, They might not go into every single unit or document it to the way that it needs to be, as opposed to our team that comes in and documents, every single unit, anything that was damaged, all common areas. So we document everything. So they're humans, they make mistakes. You have to understand that these insurance companies, typically the adjusting department who handles the claims and the underwriting and insurance agent side are basically completely siloed away from each other. So there's not a lot of overlap. So when you have a claim and it may not be going as you expected or as you hoped or as fast as possible, don't lash out at your agent. They're doing their best job to bind you with the proper policies, with affordable rates and proper coverages. It just happens it just happens where, the adjusting portion goes out and there may be issues. So, give your agent a little bit of slack there. Dan already gave you a good introduction about me. Here's a little link for myself. If you want to add me on LinkedIn, I try to post a lot of content relevant to Florida condos and insurance and case studies of things that we've handled. I went to University of Kentucky for undergrad. I did grad school at FAU. Worked in sports and music for a while, and now I've been a public adjuster for 8 years. I started out in Nebraska handling hail, tornadoes, and wind claims, and got hired by this company to work in South Florida, where most of the stuff we do are fires, pipe breaks, and large condo buildings, and then obviously large scale hurricane work.
I hope you're better at pickleball than you are at golf.
I am. That's part of the reason I transitioned out of golf. I'm not very good. I'd rather play pickleball all day. So going into what we're going to be discussing today, we're going to talk about the insurance cycle, so binding your coverages, what you're required to have under Florida condo statutes, what to do when you do have a claim, what not to do, which is sometimes even more important, your responsibilities after a loss, and then we'll open it up to additional questions. So obviously, this is the insurance cycle, right? So why are you buying insurance? You're trying to protect your investment or your association in case the worst thing should happen, so you don't have to, pay for the reconstruction yourself. Who do you buy insurance from, right? That's your agent or your broker. They're going to shop around, try to find you affordable rates, proper coverages. How do you know if you have enough insurance, right? So you have your insurance appraisal. They'll come out with a general number of what your property is valued at, and then it's up to you to bind the coverages that fulfill those numbers. And then obviously, when do you use your insurance, right? So hopefully you never have to call me because that means something terrible happened at your property. So when you do have a pipe break or a fire or hurricane comes through, that's when you want to file your claim. And when you file that claim, you want to make sure you're properly compensated and you're getting every dollar that you're owed under that policy. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that it's incumbent on the policyholder to substantiate and prove their claim to justify the money that they're requesting. So, the insurance company is going to go out, they're going to document, and they're going to come up with a number. Sometimes when we get involved and the insurance company's already been there, there's nothing we can do. They paid it correctly. And then other times, not so much. So, a lot of people just hire us to not have to deal with me and the insurance company reviewing estimates, going back and forth to make sure the money's coming. So, there's a place for everybody when one of these situations occurs.
Hey, Gil, on that exact topic, Lisa has a question. If an association is being sued and the insurance company gets the claim, does the board have any say before they settle it with the person who's suing?
That's a good question. So I'm guessing if the association is being sued and
I think essentially the question is, does the board have any say as far as the insurance company is concerned with anything? Or once it goes to the insurance company, is it like the black hole that they just have to wait to see what happens with?
Yeah, sometimes it does turn into a black hole. Assuming you have an insurance policy that covers legal expenses, then yes, the insurance company will have a pretty large say in responding to the person who is to the claimee, so the person who is doing the suing. So um, the insurance company lawyers will probably dictate most of that process.
And once that claim is in the hands of the insurance company and the attorneys are dealing with it, I guess then the question is, does the board should the board be communicating at all with the person who's suing, or at that point, do they just sort of have to
No.
let that play out?
No, they should probably just let that play out because you don't want to say anything or do anything in a board meeting that could jeopardize your legal standing or your legal position or arguments. You don't want to undermine the lawyers protecting your interests. So best thing to do is just let the lawyers handle it, and stay away from dealing with whoever is suing you would be my answer to that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. So uniqueness of condos and HOAs. Sorry, let me go back a second. So with condos and HOAs, there's kind of a unique situation where there are some common elements, but also the individual unit owners are responsible for insuring their own properties. And sometimes in these disaster situations, there's a lot of confusion about, who pays for what wind pays for, what flood pays for. So our job is basically come in, delineate those responsibilities among the different insurers and different stakeholders, and give a clear explanation of, where is the money coming from and what is it allocated to. But specifically to condos, condos here in Florida are governed by the Condominium Act, which basically states that you own an individual unit, but also have what is known as undivided interest in all the common areas. Obviously, everyone's required to follow the rules and regulations established by the condo, but there are certain statutory requirements to provide certain coverages for the common elements. And then the remaining items are typically the responsibility of the unit owner. Most condos require individual unit owners or renters to carry their own insurance. We've seen plenty of situations where individual unit owners do not carry insurance or do not have enough insurance, or specifically, they're capped with water limits of like $10,000, but a pipe breaks above them, and there is $100,000 worth of damage, and then that individual unit owner has to make up that 90,000. So make sure you review your HO6 policies or have your unit owners or renters carry a policy just to make sure everyone's protected, and then you can kind of let the insurance companies battle it out and subrogate against each other to figure out where the money's coming from. So declaration
Can
of
I ask
condominium.
a question?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
I'm sorry. I wanted to it might be a legal question, and everybody, if it is, please consult your attorney. But is this something for the insurance for individuals on your inside of your residence? Can that be required and put into your documents or make a rule where everybody has to comply?
Yes. So it can be a requirement
Okay.
in the condo docs. That's something
Okay.
the attorney would have to draw up, and I believe the board would have to like vote to put that in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I know they changed that law a while back, but they shouldn't have.
Weirdly enough, my parents have a condo in Chicago, and they're learning the hard way that there's a state law that was passed that basically allows, if there is an insurance claim, the association can determine if the association is going to pay for it, or it falls down, or make the unit owner that was responsible for, say, like a pipe break, have to pay for the damages. So, they're basically their condo board. They have a tenant who had a pipe break, and the association, instead of putting a claim through their insurance, wants my parents to have to pay for the damages, and they're going through their insurance. Luckily, they're protected. So It's a whole mess. Really glad that legislation does not exist down here because it would cause a whole host of problems. But it was kind of interesting to see them deal with that scenario.
Sure.
Uh,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So kind of going back to, uniqueness of condos, condominium documents may require more coverage than required by the Condominium Act. So Condominium Act makes you have, minimum required coverages, but you can always bind more if you want to. We're going to talk about, the importance of having a flood policy later in this presentation. We'll kind of go more into that. But typically, when you do work with your agent and you're about to bind the policy, they'll give you a statement of values that determines the coverage values within the insurance policy. So that's basically your cover page with a summary of what you're insured for and what the deductibles are. So we've already kind of touched on this. So minimum requirements. If it's an uninsured event, say like maintenance or remodeling, the unit owners are responsible to pay the cost. So that basically means that unit owners are responsible for the day-to-day maintenance and any upgrades that they want to do throughout the year. But if there is a large-scale disaster, then the association is responsible for making the repairs within the units for only things that were there as originally installed, not necessarily improved within the unit. So let's say you have a unit where the owner put in some like new impact windows, new doors, that type of thing, and then a hurricane comes in, destroys the building. The association wouldn't be responsible for allocating money to replace their doors and windows as were originally at the value of the original installation. So there might be a little delta there, but essentially the association is responsible for all the basic elements as originally installed. And that also includes interior finishes. So part of the minimum requirements are to carry a replacement cost value policy to cover all the common elements of the association. Additionally, unit owners are responsible for insuring their units. So we already kind of touched on that. But a key portion of the legislative act is that, as it kind of states here in section 1, all portions of the condominium property as originally installed are a replacement of like, kind, and quality in accordance with the original plans and specs. So that's kind of what we already discussed, right? The association is going to be responsible for making the repairs, and the value of the claim for those specific portions will be based on what is a similar product that can be installed now and what does it cost based on what it was originally constructed as. Sorry, so a good example of the common elements listed here are like floor, wall, ceiling cover, electrical fixtures, appliances, water heaters, water filters, built-in cabinets, countertops, window treatments, including curtains, drapes, blinds, hardware, and similar window components, or replacements of any of the foregoing which are located within the boundaries of the unit and only serve the unit. Such property and any insurance thereupon is the responsibility of the unit owner. So essentially, what that's saying is all that stuff is going to be covered by the association. The unit owner will be responsible for all their personal possessions and belongings. That's typically covered under your contents portion of your insurance policy. So we got a question here. If an external situation damages a door, which should be securing the unit and affects the internal area of the unit, could a cause and effect apply, placing the blame on the association? I've never really seen that happen. Depending on what the damages are, that's probably, I can't see that being that expensive. So that's probably something that the unit owner and the association would have to figure out. It might just be worth eating the cost, even though no association wants to pick up the bill for questionable damages. Sometimes it's like not worth the headache. So that's something that the board would kind of have to figure out what they want to do. But kind of depends on what the external situation would be. That can kind of determine the cause and effect, honestly. So let's go into disaster preparedness. I always like this little cartoon here. Um, it's really important to understand your policy, what's in there, what might not be in there. So one of the things our company does is make sure that associations understand their policies. We offer a free policy review where we give you a quick summary and kind of an explanation of, how your policy would be sufficient or insufficient in different types of situations. So let's say there's a fire or a pipe break or a hurricane comes through, there might be gaps in coverages that could be detrimental to the association. So, we're going to kind of go through this throughout the presentation, but understanding unit owner versus condo responsibilities. This is something that we distribute to all of our clients after a hurricane comes through. So let's say you engage us and we start working the claim. We distribute this to the board to then distribute to all the unit owners. And it's basically an outline of every element within the building and what insurance is paying, who's responsible for what and what insurance is paying for it. So typically, with hurricanes, you have wind damage as well as flooding. So as you can see here, one of the things is, so let's talk about appliances, right? So with a hurricane, the unit owner is responsible for that. The association is not. But the flood, if it's flooding on the first floor, the flood policy will pay for that. So, it kind of helps clear up a lot of the confusion, and it basically gives like 100 something items and where the money is coming from. And that's typically the biggest hurdle that we see that managers have to deal with after a hurricane is everybody asking the same questions over and over and trying to figure out where's the money coming from, how are we funding this, and we'll kind of go into more of that later. So some tidbits of recent hurricanes that we worked. These are our guys at one of the associations we represented, but from Hurricane Ian, we represented 150 associations, and then with Milton and Helene, which was in our backyard, we represented over 40. Cannot stress the importance of carrying a flood policy, whether it's your individual home or an association, even if you're not mandated to get it because you're not in a floodplain. Infrastructure here in South Florida is not the greatest. Drainage is a problem. We see in Miami, everything floods every time it rains for more than an hour. So with Helene and Milton, we saw flooding a couple hundred miles inland towards Orlando. And the worst phone calls I have to take and answer are from associations that call me, saying they had a bunch of damage, but they didn't carry a flood policy. How are we going to pay for those damages? And the answer is, you got to talk to FEMA. You might get a small amount of FEMA money, but your regular wind policy, typical property policy does not cover flooding. That is a completely separate policy. It's relatively inexpensive compared to the cost of your normal property policy, and I would recommend everybody to get flood coverage.
Gil, a common mistake that I get asked on a regular basis, a common question that is mistaken on a regular basis, is a lot of people think flood insurance covers them when a pipe breaks and their unit is flooded. Do you want to just touch upon the difference, please?
Sure. That is a great question. So a lot of people, when there's a pipe break, will say, oh, we flooded 12 units. No, you sustained water damage to 12 units. So flood is rising groundwater or storm surge. And water damage is anything that happens from like a broken pipe within, or like a fixture. So any type of like internal water damage that wasn't rising groundwater. So there's, common misnomers. And sometimes, we have seen claims get denied because associations or homeowners are putting it in as flooding when it should just be water damage, like pipe break water damage. So, the insurance companies will be sticklers for verbiage. So just make sure, if you do suffer a pipe break or, any type of water damage, you just classify it as water damage. And just remember that, flooding is rising groundwater.
Gil, Valerie has a great question that I actually would be helpful. But do you guys have any type of documentation that describes what damages are covered by what types of insurance? That might be a useful tool, whether you guys create it or someone like me creates it.
Yeah, I have a little template. I can email that out along with my presentation after this. It would probably take me a couple minutes to dig through my desktop folders here, but yes, we do have a copy of what damages are covered from what insurance. So
Perfect. I
I'll
think
be
that'd
sure
be
to,
helpful for everyone. Thanks, Gil.
yeah, absolutely. So kind of some more on flood. Um, Building units are maximum 250,000 per unit on first finished floor. So let's say, you have an older building with first floor units. Basically, you're insured up to 250,000 per unit. The contents can vary based on the policies and other factors within the policy. And the flood policies are basically limited to, I think it's like 12 specific items right here. So basically, this is every standard flood policy. It's pretty black and white what they will and will not pay for. There's certain factors that can affect it based on like the age of the building. So essentially anything within the footprint of the building is covered. We've had situations where one of the things that isn't covered in a storm situation are pools, but if your pool equipment is housed within a structure of the condo, that equipment may be covered, but anything outside of that won't be. So it's really important to have somebody on your team that can interpret the policy and make sure everything is covered within those. Let's see, we got another question here. I've experienced property management place blame of a broken pipe in a wall that leads to a unit as the unit owner's responsibility. Can you speak on that, please? Yeah, typically a broken pipe within a wall, let's say it's like in their unit, that would be the owner's responsibility, because maintenance is technically their responsibility. So first you would have that tenant or unit owner put in a claim under their insurance, and potentially their insurance company would try to subrogate against the association. We've seen a lot of situations where it also depends. Sorry, it should also depend what type of pipe it is. We've seen where it's like washing machine connection that ruptures, that would be the unit owner responsibility. But if it's like a main supply line behind a wall, that would be the association responsibility. So every scenario is different. So specifically, anything that's like leaking is usually the owner's responsibility. Bottom half of the cycle, handling insurance claims. So do's and don'ts. These are kind of important. Failure to do any of these would possibly jeopardize the claim. So just some basics, before a storm is approaching, or, just as you're kind of reviewing your insurance documents, make sure you are saving copies of all your policies and financial documents with paper versions, but also to the cloud. After hurricanes, communication towers go down, offices get completely wiped out. So you want to make sure that you have everything backed up, readily accessible to the cloud. So when you are able to, get back online, you can easily get those documents and kind of get the process started. And it'll help, people in my position. It'll help any contractors you have coming on site to understand what your coverages are. Ensure evacuation plans are current and backup systems are fully functional. So, make sure you're testing any generators that you may have. Review your evacuation plans. Make sure everyone understands, what those are. Identify any potential building envelope hazards. So think of it as anything that could potentially turn into a projectile and cause damage or, potential loss of life to somebody. So, before storms coming, everyone goes to like their pool decks. They clean out all the cabanas, move the chairs, all that stuff, bring that inside. Also trimming trees, loose branches, anything that's loose you want to secure and move indoors because when 100 mile an hour winds come in, basically anything can get caught up in that and cause a lot of damage. So you want to make sure you minimize that. When we have seen situations where associations fail to secure patio chairs, they have a security camera set up, and there's video footage of the chair flying into the exterior of the building. The insurance company doesn't want to necessarily pay for that because it could have been prevented. So another big thing is capture pre-loss pictures and videos in a general capacity. So if you're seeing hurricane warnings and it's 4 or 5 days out, make sure you go around the property taking lots of photos, do a video walkthrough, go up to the roof, take photos, videos, and then walk through the common areas and make sure your tenants or unit owners do the same within their individual units. That makes the claim process go a lot faster because you're able to say, look, this is what it was before the storm. This is what it is after. And it's really hard to argue that. But when there isn't photos or videos of the condition of the property before, it makes everyone's job a little bit more difficult. And it's harder to prove, what those damages are. Emergency contact information is in place. Recovery plan is ready to be deployed. So, everyone has a hurricane preparedness program. Make sure you have, we'll kind of go through it later, but, the list of everyone you're going to need and their contact information. So, emergency services contractor, electricians, elevator people, your public adjuster, like local police, fire department contacts, anybody who may be involved in getting back to the property and, making sure it's safe to re-enter. And then obviously, having your vendors in place, it's really important. And we're going to touch on this a little bit later too, to have relationships, with your best roofing, with your velocities, with your Altieris, to make sure that you get priority service because after a large scale disaster, resources are scarce. There's going to be storm chasers coming in from all over the place, lots of unlicensed people pretending to be licensed, wanting to, get some business. So it's a little chaotic and it's really important to, have priority service because, you want your people to be able to move back in and rebuild as quickly as possible. You want to get, your insurance money flowing as quickly as possible. So having strong relationships in place ahead of the storm prevents a lot of issues further down the road.
Yeah, and Gil, I'll just jump in for 2 seconds. Having done quite a few webinars and seminars and panel discussions with yourself, Steve, restoration companies, the thing that I think is incredibly important that I think a lot of people don't realize, and Peggy, you know this as well. We've spoken about this at our seminar last year. We did a whole, hurricane seminar. It costs nothing to have a restoration company, or most of the time, I'll say, it costs nothing to have a restoration company, have an agreement with a restoration company to have them be your first responder, if you will.
Yes.
Most restoration companies I don't even think they charge money in most cases, at least that's what I've heard from many of them, to just have you as on that priority list. And if you don't have a restoration company that you are on their priority list with, you definitely need to do that before June 1st, because that is worth its weight in gold. As Gil said, once a storm comes through, the number of people that are going to be out there trying to capture business that don't have licenses or came from somewhere else and you don't know is going to be enormous. And there's very limited resources to go around. So have those relationships in advance. Hugely important.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback off that, it's vitally important for the health of the building to get contractors out there to do the mitigation work because everything's going to be everything's going to be sopping wet. You don't want your building turning into a science experiment. So The insurance companies will pay for mitigation efforts. It can make the claim much more difficult and complex if you fail to mitigate in a timely fashion. They'll typically, give you some leeway if, let's say, you're isolated by an island and the bridge gets knocked out and there's physically no way to get onto the property. They understand that. They'll give you some room, but if it's been a week and no one's done any mitigation work and now there's mold everywhere, that's going to cause problems within the claim. So, having somebody to get out there to mitigate the damages makes the damage like a lot less significant, and makes the reconstruction a lot easier and a lot more efficient. And also, I've literally dealt with associations who, hired it was a Serve Pro that was doing this mitigation work, but the team that came down was from Iowa. So it was Serve Pro Iowa that was basically subcontracted by Serve Pro here in Florida. And they were botching the mitigation. They'd never done flood work. Like everything they'd done was boarding up windows after a tornado, and sealing a roof. They had no experience in doing drywall tear out, or mitigating mold, and they were running up bills. They were just like sweeping sand all over the place, and we had to get them. We basically got them punted off the property because they were doing more harm than good, and they wanted to charge an astronomical amount. So, just another reason why it's very important to vet and have a contract in place with people ahead of time, because you may end up with somebody from out of state who has never done the work that is required to preserve your building.
Hey, Gil,
Yes.
so Valerie asked a question and I wrote a response to it already, but since
Yeah.
we have people from all over the state on this webinar,
Yes.
if people are not local to, the Southeast where we're located, who would you look for as top vendors in their particular area to reach out to? So my answer
Yeah.
was look for the reputable companies that are specifically like restoration companies, of
Yes.
course, insurance adjusters. Altieri does it across the state. But is there any other specific vendors that you would direct her to make sure she has an agreement with?
Yeah, if you belong to, say, CAI or CAM University or any one of those management organizations, there's typically vendors within the local market who are kind of in tune with that. So I would give them, first shot. Obviously, Google them, look at their Google reviews. That's a pretty good indicator of their capabilities. I don't want to promote any certain companies, but we've done work with Velocity, Rick's company. They do really good work. We partnered on a couple projects in Helene and Milton. They're very knowledgeable, very good. Trying to think, First On Site, we've worked with them. We pretty much, URI, we've worked with pretty much every mitigation contractor. So if you need specifics in a specific market, I'm happy to pass those names along. But the biggest thing is really just Googling them, asking for references, asking them for case studies of similar buildings that they may have worked with, like similar scenarios, and just kind of get a feel for who you may be comfortable with, because every company is different. But just make sure they're licensed and bonded as well. That's probably the biggest thing I can recommend when vetting these people. Let's see, are there any other questions in there? No. Okay.
No, I just would like to say further regarding Velocity, because I'm trying to help them on the east side of the state here. They have an outstanding program. I don't think anyone else is doing this. They will do for free, come to your property and drone it, take
Yep.
pictures, catalog it. They will provide forms and so on, again, at no charge, and put it into the cloud so that it can never be destroyed if it's lost on your property. If you want to make an appointment with me directly, I can set that up for Rick. But Rick Hogan, he's coming over here regularly now, every other week. And especially the properties on the ocean, it's free. I don't understand why, a lot more
Yep.
people aren't taking him up on this that I'm introducing him to. But I recently introduced him to the Castle properties with Ryan Johnson. he's on board to take a look at doing property evaluations for service residential. He's got a lot of experience with real managed. So, take advantage of this, you guys. It's a free appointment. He comes out. It takes probably about a couple hours to do that. And, he just does an absolute fabulous job. I've seen the work, and he will walk the property with you, and then he returns the information within 3 to 5 days. It's a pretty quick turnaround to have this available to you. And now is the time, because now with the hurricane season coming, like they're saying, after June 1st, it's so hard to find people and so on. He can also accommodate a large loss, destruction of an area, because they have over 100 people available right now that can come right in today and be here within 48 hours. To be on the property. And they also do just removal. If you have a couple of companies that you're working with and they can't get to the debris removal to get to your property, they do that as well. So there's a lot of things to look into. Look up Velocity Group, servicesgroup.com.
Yeah, and it's also important to understand that some companies just do mitigation, which is, coming in there, doing drywall tear out, drying everything out, but they may not necessarily do the reconstruction after everything's torn out. So, understand what their capabilities are. It's ultimately up to the association, the management to figure out, who they want to do certain aspects of the rebuild. So, there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to that type of stuff. But yeah, Rick's team is very professional, very knowledgeable. It's also important to understand that when they are performing mitigation, that what they charge, that comes off your total limit of insurance. And so when you do have mitigation contractors, who are not the most ethical, right? They're incentivized to do as much work as possible so they can get paid as much as possible. And that comes off the total limit of insurance, which, let's say, there's a lot of damage that could possibly eat into the reconstruction. So, one of the things we do is review their billing and their estimates to make sure what they're doing is covered within the scope of insurance, and that they're not just taking the association for a ride, for $1 million worth of work, when really they should have probably just done, $300,000 worth of tear out and dry out. So, not to say that all mitigation companies do that. But like I said, we have run into those scenarios, and we have had to boot people off jobs and chop down their billing estimates because, they're just taking people for a ride. And a lot of associations just don't have somebody who's knowledgeable enough to, understand that what they're charging is unfair, or price gouging, which does occur in these disaster situations. But yeah, let's keep this moving. So
Yeah, Gil, just time check. It's 11.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll speed through the rest of this. So during the storm, make sure that all your occupants and yourselves are safe. If they're telling you to evacuate, please leave. You can replace your stuff. You can't replace your life. Nothing is worth staying and riding out the storm, especially when it's predicted over Cat 3. So follow all the mandatory evacuation or instructions. Contact emergency organizations as necessary. So after storm rolls through, you want to make sure you get the fire department out there to make sure that there's no electrical risk, because there are a lot of fires that occur when electricity gets restored to a building. Or if you have electric vehicles, if those get swamped, they also catch on fire from the salt water and lithium batteries don't necessarily mix. So, keys to do after the storm. Communication is key. So, keeping your owners abreast of what's happening, what timeframes are looking like, what access to the building may be like, informing them of what the damages are and what the next steps are. That can clear up a lot of confusion. So, if you don't already, make sure you have like email listserv or a group chat, somewhere where you can relay all that information to everybody. Biggest thing is identifying any potential life safety issues. So, making sure when you get back to the property that there's, there may be exposed wires, sinkholes, loose debris, roofing tiles that are loose. The last thing you want on top of an insurance claim is a lawsuit because somebody got injured from something that was very preventable. Then, once it's deemed safe, you want to restore building functions. So, getting power and plumbing back to the building. One of the big issues we run into is everybody wants temporary power. Everyone wants a generator. It may not necessarily be covered under your insurance policy. And we have seen scenarios where, they brought out a generator for 2 weeks. That's very expensive to do that. But, tenants wanted to be back in the building. They got a generator, and now they're hit with a $300,000 bill for temporary power that's not necessarily covered by insurance. So, make sure you understand if temporary power is or is not covered. Identify damaged areas for potential mitigation solutions. So that's where having public adjuster or mitigation company is extremely valuable, right? You want to make sure if there's like window blowouts or if like lobbies are flooded, you want to see what the damages are and what needs to occur to preserve the functionality of the building. And next is preserve all evidence, right? You want to treat your property as essentially a crime scene. So you want to go through, take lots of photos, take lots of video. If mitigation contractors are out there and they're doing tear out, and they're throwing stuff in a dumpster, make sure they don't haul off that dumpster before the insurance company has a chance to come on site and see the damages themselves, right? They're going to do their investigation. You want to make sure that they see the full extent of the damages. So that's why it's really important to preserve all the evidence, not throw anything. If you do put stuff in a dumpster, keep it on site for them to see. And then, just walk through make sure they, are looking at every floor, every exterior of the building, any common areas, the roof, make sure, they're getting the full scope of the damages. Review the post-loss checklist. When we get involved, we typically issue, along with the unit owner versus association responsibilities checklist, we give a post-loss checklist of just like obligations and things to do and people to contact. So you want to make sure that the ball gets rolling on there. And then, one of the biggest things is, just understand it's going to be like a long recovery process. It's going to be emotional. There's going to be a lot of tensions that are riding pretty high, lots of money flowing around. So, just remember to, nothing's going to be solved in a day. You have people that are there to help. So, lean on them to, keep the ball rolling and to help you through this situation. When we talk about life safety and mitigation, this is a building that we worked in Naples after Hurricane Ian. And this is what their first floor looked like. So you can see, sinkhole here, loose wires exposed everywhere. You don't want people walking through that. So, securing it off, and, making sure that everybody's safe before they re-enter the premises, is extremely important. So after the storm, people you want to have readily accessible. We're biased. We're public adjusters. We want to work the claim. So obviously, having us on standby, ready to get the ball rolling for you, is something we want to be involved in. But security is important. There's a lot of looters and contractors coming through, people wanting to get on your property. Within your insurance policy, there may be coverage for temporary security. So, that's something to talk to your PA about. Make sure you have a roofer because there's going to be roof leaks. Your roof may get torn off or a portion may get torn off, or there could be significant damages. You want to get that tarped as quickly as possible. Having an electrician to, make sure you get electricity flowing back into the building, preventing any possible fires, figuring out temporary electrical solutions. Your elevator companies, right? We see tons of elevator damage where salt water gets into the cavities, cause all types of problems. So again, having a temporary solution and then working to get a permanent fix down the road. HVAC, and then, your emergency services contractors, so your mitigation companies. So those are the people that you'll want to have readily accessible, that can, are all going to be crucial with the claim recovery as well as the reconstruction. Preparing before the storm. So we always like to say as public adjusters, would you let the IRS do your taxes? Probably not. So you want somebody on your side that's going to represent your interest. There's different types of adjusters. A lot of people get confused. So there's staff claims adjusters. Those are people specifically employed by State Farm or Allstate or American Coastal that are direct employees of those insurance companies. Then there's independent adjusters who are contractors. So they're independent companies that are contracted by the insurance company to go out and evaluate damages, put together initial estimates. However, independent adjusters do not have the power to issue any money to you. That is the staff claims adjuster who has the power of the purse. So a lot of times, an independent adjuster will go out, come back with their estimate and some findings, and desk adjusters or staff claims adjusters may chop down their estimates. If anybody saw the 60 Minutes a couple of years ago, essentially what was happening was these IAs were coming back with their numbers, and then the desk adjusters for the actual insurance companies were just chopping their estimates in half and issuing payments that way. So, there's a lot of moving parts. And then there's obviously people like me who advocate on behalf of the association and the individual unit owners. We've already touched on most of these potential landmines. So deductibles, understand, make sure you understand what those deductibles are, what your hurricane deductible is, what your potential limits on the insurance are. Understand the duties in event of a loss. So those are typically outlined in your insurance policy of what your responsibilities are. One of the biggest things is making sure that the damage doesn't get worse. So, make sure you're preventing further damage. That's why it's really important to have a mitigation company. You need to cooperate with the insurance company's investigation. So, making sure they have access to come out. You're providing all the documentation that they request. As public adjusters, we typically take over all of that for you. You also have to notify the insurance company in a timely fashion. So if you don't report it within several weeks or whatever's outlined in the policy, it can be grounds for denial or like a lower payment. And then within the policy, sometimes there's carve outs. So big things we've seen are like wind driven rain exclusions, which essentially means if like water is seeping through windows, they won't cover it. But if a window gets blown out or there's a giant hole in the roof and water comes in, they'll pay for it that way. Understand, structures in the policy, structures on the property may not be covered unless they're specifically outlined in your policy. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand are like pools aren't covered unless they're written in there. If you have dockage or marinas, or shuffleboard courts or pickleball courts or tennis courts, unless they're specifically listed on your policy, that will not be covered.
Yeah, lights, a lot of like lights in the parking lot, what we call
Yeah.
property in the open.
Yep. Lights, like parking gates. There typically is coverage for landscaping. But if you have like a lot of landscaping, you might want to try to figure out some like additional coverages on that. We've already gone into deep discussion about storm chasers and fly-by-night door knockers. So, just make sure anybody who's coming out to the property you've already talked to, verify their licensing, their bonding, and their insurance, because we've seen plenty of situations where they perform terrible work and then, the association has to make repairs on the initial repairs, but there's no way to like go after the initial contractor who did the terrible work. So, make sure everything is verified before they do any work.
And just to touch up on that real quick, Gil, if you do have someone who comes to your property who claims to be licensed and you have any question about whether they do or don't, make sure they provide you with a certificate of insurance. And even with the certificate, because those can be fraudulently created, contact the actual carrier and make sure that that person has a policy in place. Just do your due diligence and don't just take people's word for it if you have any question about whether or not you think they have coverage.
Yeah. And also understand that a lot of businesses, like specifically for public adjusters, if they don't have a license in the state of Florida, they're not even allowed to solicit. So just soliciting without a license can be a violation of the law. I believe that also goes for certain types of contractors, but specifically for like what we do, if they're not licensed in Florida and they're talking to you, that's a violation of the law.
Gil, we got a question if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Batya says wind insurance has a very high deductible, as we all know, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of times the deductible is more expensive than the actual repair. What is your experience with this sort of situation?
Yeah, so we've actually run into that situation a lot. One of the things is, if you're unsure about what the extent of the damage is, because you do have a very high wind deductible, you can reach out to us. We'll come out, evaluate the structure, and let you know this is going to exceed, or like this at least should exceed the deductible enough where it does make sense to file the claim, or it's not even going to reach the deductible. The association's on the hook to make the repairs out of pocket. But there are also products that are called deductible buyback policies, where you can essentially buy down your massively high deductible. So it's a little extra money, but it brings down that deductible significantly. And we have worked with associations who had those deductible buyback policies, and it was extremely beneficial in that scenario.
Yeah, and I will tell you, as an insurance broker, everybody wants to pay the least amount of premium possible for their insurance policies, but the trade-off for a lower premium is a higher deductible. So when you're evaluating what to pay for your insurance, for your windstorm coverage, take a look at what exactly that deductible is going to equal before you agree. So most communities, the highest deductible that they want to take is a 5% deductible, which is a big number. Imagine if your building is a $10 million building and you have a 5% deductible. That means that you are out of pocket $500,000 before the insurance is going to pay anything. And many times they'll have a minimum. So even when you have smaller buildings, while the deductible may be 3% or 5%, it'll say subject to a $100,000 minimum. So make sure you review that and take that into consideration when you decide if, in fact, paying the lowest premium makes the most sense for you. Just something people don't realize until after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the worst policies I saw during the last storm was a 10% wind deductible. So it ended up basically being $1 million. And our estimate was it was going to be around 800,000, 850,000. So, association was kind of screwed at that point. But yeah, it's important to understand what those deductibles are. And, you're going to be paying one way or another, either, through your premiums or out of pocket. So,
and in the case scenario you just mentioned, I would even say they'd be better off paying it out of pocket anyway, just so they don't have that claim on their insurance going forward. Because remember, when you put in a claim, as miserable as this sounds, and none of us like it, but the way the world works is when you put in that claim, you now have that claim on your loss history for the next 3 to 5 years. And that means every carrier who looks at you after that is going to know that and going to adjust their premiums accordingly. So remember that while we don't want to make claims, when we do and we need to, we should, but it will be there on the record for the future. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do, like day-to-day work, especially when it comes to water damage and pipe breaks and those types of things, there's a lot of, so some of the water deductibles can be high, some of their limits can be pretty low. So we go in and we'll evaluate the damage and basically make recommendations to the association. Hey, this one, it's barely going to exceed your deductible. Probably doesn't make sense to have this on your claim history. Just, pay for the repairs out of pocket. So that's probably a quarter of the calls that we get are people that we just recommend not even putting in a claim and just paying for it out of pocket. Because it would be more beneficial to not have it on the claim history.
One more question, Gil, we have time?
Yep.
So Peter asks, in the case that you do the repairs without the insurance, How, if any way, does that affect the standing with the insurance in terms of the structural integrity? In other words, will the insurance carriers in the future look at your structural integrity any differently because you did it without them paying for it? Will it be the case that the property may have to be reevaluated?
Typically, no. If let's say it's like a significant event, like let's say it was a fire that for some reason you decided not to go through insurance and make the repairs yourself, that would be something where you would want to like have the insurance company come out to just see the scope of the repairs to make sure that like they'll still bind the coverage. But most like small repairs not going to affect, like the insurance company is not really going to care. The only time they might is like let's say there was a pipe break, did a little bit of damage, you paid for the repairs yourself, but then there's another pipe break a couple months later with like the same pipe. They may want more information about the scope of the repairs, who did the repairs. They may want to like subrogate against the contractor who made those repairs. So just make sure you're keeping the records of any repairs that were made,
Right.
just to protect yourself down the line.
Right. Documentation, Peter. Documentation is key.
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep this thing moving. So after the storm, we already talked, don't panic. You got a team around you. Don't engage with anyone who has not, been properly contracted. Don't provide too much information. So words matter. You have to cooperate with the insurance company's investigation, but we have seen situations where like facility manager is escorting adjusters around and they divulge information about certain equipment may have been, having issues before the storm, and then the insurance company doesn't want to pay for it. So, don't offer up more information than what's requested. If you're not sure about what they're asking you, to say, I don't know, I'm not sure. If you have an adjuster that's working for you, they can handle all those communications as well. But just be very careful when dealing with insurance company personnel, and relay that to your tenants as well, because you don't want them offering up any information. Sometimes they might not know and they may just say stuff, and that can have a detrimental effect on the claim as well. Don't start remediation without the plan being laid out by your PA. So it's not necessarily true, but you want to make sure that a lot of the coverages are verified, that the PA is contacted your mitigation company to make sure that all the work that they're doing is going to be covered by the policy, and they're documenting and moisture mapping everything along the way. It's really important that like both the PA and the restoration contractor are working together, for the best interest of the association. So what are the steps to managing a successful claim outcome? Obviously, pre-plan. The goal is to get everybody into the building safely and to resume occupancy. You want all your people to be in the know, be well informed, so they're not constantly bugging you, asking questions, or talking to each other. We've seen a lot of situations where, especially for managers, dealing with a disaster or claim can make or break the contract with the association. So we've seen where they totally botch the recovery, and then the association gets, the manager gets punted the next year, and a new management company comes in. And we've seen it the other way where like they've done a bang up job, the association next door, people talk and they end up getting hired because, the association manager was a rock star, during the whole claim process. Managing your insurance proceeds. So typically there's going to be several payments. One of the big things is getting an initial payment released to cover those mitigation bills, and then you work to come to a agreement on the final number for the reconstruction. But we kind of work with the boards to come up with priority list, of what they want to repair in what order, and what is the most important thing to happen when. So it's really important to manage your proceeds well. A proper recovery means you don't have to dip into reserves to fund the repairs or take out costly bridge loans, and you're only using insurance money to make the repairs. And then lastly, you want to make sure that anybody who's doing any work is doing quality work, complying with the codes, bringing your building up to date. Sometimes with the older buildings, honestly, with code upgrade coverage, a storm might, it sounds terrible, it might be the best thing that happened to the property because there were a ton of CapEx projects they were maybe going to do the following year, like roofing or upgraded windows. When a storm comes through, you can use the insurance proceeds and your code upgrade coverage to, make those improvements. Um, but, you don't want to run into situations where people do poor work and then 2 years later, you have to make another roof repair. Like nobody wants to do that. So again, vet your contractors, and, hold them accountable. Uh,
And just
what,
for those that may not be aware, the code improvement on an insurance policy is called ordinance and law. So make sure you have, even though they say it backwards, L and O, make sure you have ordinance and law coverage.
Yep. Yeah, that can be, extremely valuable. Typically 20% of the total insured value. So, why it's important to have a proper recovery, right? So a lot of people look at their property as an investment. After a loss, that value goes down. You want to make sure that those values are preserved. Maintaining business continuity. So some associations may have businesses, on the first floor where they're collecting rent. So, you want to make sure there's no interruption there. And everyone, the business is getting back up and running as quickly as possible so you can collect on that money. The long-term health of the building. We already kind of talked about reputation management for, the association managers. Then there's also, your compliance and legal obligations. So, the board can be held responsible if something goes sideways in the claim recovery or if funds go missing or, the repairs are poor. So, make sure, you're protecting yourself as a manager or as a board member. And then insurance and financial considerations. So, we already touched on your claim history. Uh, if it's brought up to code and proper repairs are made, that can go a long way into keeping your premiums lower. So, if you're able to go back with a brand new roof, hopefully there's some incentives, for lower premiums the following year. But, you want to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses, and, hopefully it can even have like a beneficial effect on your future insurance coverages. So real quickly, it's just a chart of weather and climate disasters over the last 20 years. The frequency and the cost is going up. So, everything's more expensive, labor is more expensive, materials are more expensive. That's kind of what also, besides the quantity, just the cost of repairs has gone up. So, we're talking really large numbers here. It's really important that you collect everything that you're owed when something does happen. And in 2024, these are just billion-dollar disasters around the country. So when your premiums go up, it's not just you. Everyone's premiums are going up because of the global cost of reinsurance. It's basically the insurance that the insurance companies have to buy to protect them from massive catastrophic losses when they have to pay out tons of claims. So when you did see those premiums going up, it was because of not just storms in Florida, which can also impact it, but the collective disasters around the country.
Yeah, the numbers I hear, Gil, are something to the extent of 75 to 80% of every dollar we pay in premium is actually going to reinsurance.
That's wild. I did not know that. Yeah, that's kind of insane. So just some case studies about like what we do and how we get involved. This was a condo building that had a fire downtown Miami. So we initially got them $80,000 to fund the mitigation repairs, and then secured them an additional 450,000 to repair some of the common elements. They had some, the fire suppression system went off on one floor and basically damaged the entire hallway. A lot of stuff had to be repainted. There were several other units that were affected by the suppression system going off. But we were basically able to get all the repairs funded through the insurance. in a relatively quick manner. This was a Hurricane Zeta claim that initially they only got offered $50,000. We got them an additional $4.2 million. They came in way below their deductible. Obviously, $50,000 was completely incorrect. But we were able to make a massive difference on that one. This was a resort that we worked in Hurricane Ian. You can see, the extent of the damage here. So they initially got offered $5 million, which, is a significant amount of money. But they started getting repair bills in and realized there was a massive delta between what they had been paid and what contractors were telling them. We were able to come in. They hired us about 4 months after Hurricane Ian, and we were able to get them another $10 million to fund all their repairs. And then this was one, you can see the drone footage of this property. It's one of the biggest properties in Naples. And so they hired us the day after the storm. We got them $4 million at the very beginning to clean all this up and tarp everything and begin mitigation work. And by the end of it, it was basically $40 million that covered this whole complex and this big condo building here. So they didn't have to take out any loans, charge assessments, anything like that. And their entire rebuild was funded through their insurance claim proceeds. And we were able to get this all resolved. And they basically repaired everything you see here within 8 months. So much so that their board president gave us a testimonial. I'm not going to make you guys listen to it. You can see it on our YouTube page where we have a bunch of other testimonials on there. But if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. You can scan my QR code, add me on LinkedIn, reach out to me if you have any questions about your policies, or let's say you have like ongoing claims, or just want to grab lunch. I'm always available to answer questions and be a resource for you guys. And I appreciate you guys taking your time on this Friday to talk about everyone's favorite subject, insurance.
Gil, I got one for you.
Yeah.
I was just first off, everyone, put your question in the Q&A, please, not the chat. But I got a question for Gil that I was having a debate with an association this past week, and I would love your opinion on it.
Sure.
The association was told by another agent that in order to reduce their insurance premium, a smart thing to do would be to take the dollar amount in their appraisal that is reflected for property for things underground out of the total amount of replacement value, so that essentially they could modify their replacement value by the value of what's underground. And while I'm not suggesting that you can't do that, my thought was I've dealt with situations where we've had under slab leaks in pipes, and that gets incredibly costly. If you think it's expensive to repair a pipe above ground, try repairing one under the slab. And so I thought that was not a great savings to be had, where they were saving, $10,000 or $15,000 on a multi-$100,000 premium to eliminate their underground coverage. You have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I would side with you on that. I think it's worth paying a little more to have those coverages, because I was literally dealing with that exact situation a couple of weeks ago down in Miami, property that basically had a ruptured pipe under their building that caused water damage. See, even I do it. Caused water damage to their lobby, got into some of the elevator cavities. So you definitely want to make sure you have those coverages. Those repairs are very costly. It takes a lot of people to come out there, dig it up. Like plumbing bills get insane when they have to deal with a ruptured pipe. So I think it's worth just paying the premium to have that coverage as opposed to not having it. Especially, I don't know where the property is located or how old the building is, but the older the building, the more likely something bad is going to happen. So I would make sure to just carry that coverage.
So in a follow-up to that, Ahiza asks, we had a break in the water damage in a water drain. Sorry. We had a break in the water drainage underground pipe. Would that be covered by insurance?
So it depends where the pipe is located. So if it's the rule of thumb is if it's like directly under the building, that would be covered. If it's, say, under the grass between the building and the sidewalk, like leading out to a main, um, that may or may not be covered by your policy. It kind of depends. And then if it's on the street by like the connection of where it meets the like the infrastructure and like city drainage, that's probably not covered by your insurance policy and it'd be like the responsibility of the city to fix. But we have seen situations where like the uh, the pipe broke, the city should technically be responsible for it, but it flooded so much water that it actually, or you know, saturated the ground so much that it seeped into the lobby and affected an elevator and caused a bunch of damage. And essentially, the association had to pick up that cost. So it's kind of tricky depending on where the pipe is located.
Additional question from Richard. In a sewer backup in a unit, is the owner responsible for the cleanup or the association?
That's a good question. So assuming, let's say it's like a, you know, like a toilet that backed up and flooded, that would be the unit owner responsibility for their unit. If the water damage then like, you know, seeped into the hallways and down to other units, the common areas and the common elements would be the association's responsibility. But they would most likely then subrogate against the unit owner's insurance.
Gil, Lee would like to know that they are located in Southwest Florida. Do you have a branch in the Fort Myers, Cape Coral for Altieri?
Yes, we do. We actually did a lot of work in Fort Myers. My colleague Paul covers Fort Myers. He's based out of Naples, but he covers the Fort Myers and Cape Coral area. And we
Yeah,
have
Lee,
somebody.
you can reach out to Gil directly. His contact info is on the screen right now. I'm sure he'll get you Paul's info.
Yeah, and we we have somebody in Bonita as well.
Okay, well, that concludes all of the questions in the Q&A, Gil. That was, as always, a phenomenal presentation, always extremely helpful. And I mean, no one's got more information than this stuff than you do. So I appreciate the opportunity to moderate for you, and I thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. And thank you guys for sitting through all this and listening to me and joining me on this Friday. It's been great. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're awesome, Gil. That's why I love to have you periodically, especially before hurricane season, before it hits the fan, right? Thank you again, Daniel, and thank you, board members, for choosing us today to sit in with us, and CAM managers. You guys are awesome. We had so many register, and everyone who registered will get a copy of the slides. Again, look for your sponsor sheet. And I just want to mention a couple of things that are coming up. Starting with next Tuesday, as I mentioned earlier, Vinteum Software is going to have a training session / information session about websites. Please join us. It's going to be very informative. I already sent a flyer out, but I'm going to resend another flyer out today and again on Monday. So invite other board members, other neighbor board members, anyone that you think needs to know or help with this information. And I can tell you that I have heard prices are extremely affordable and competitive from Vinteum. So get set up, get in, compliance. And then after that, the following week in March 5th, I have URI, that's Unlimited Restoration, coming in, a restoration company. They're going to speak, which would be right behind Gil here. They are going to let you know what they can and can't do and what things that need to be done again. I think it'd be very informative again before the hurricane season. So past that, I'm gonna
Peg, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just one more time for everyone. I keep getting the question about credit for this for the class. Gil will take we have everyone's CAM number, and that was that when you registered for the class. Gil will take that information, upload your credit to the state. You will not receive a certificate specifically. So give it about 2 weeks, just because the state works slowly sometimes. check your online portal to see that you got credit. And then after 2 weeks, if you still don't see your credit, you can reach out to Gil and see if, when his team was able to upload that information and make sure you got your credit. Just so everyone's clear, that will go on, but please give us a little bit of time.
Okay, and let me close by just saying we have the third series of the Construction Summit coming up on March 20th. We're going to have another panel with a reputable attorney, Stephen Rappaport, along with construction engineer, and Rudy Martin, who is very well known in the industry for construction and painting. So thanks again. Have a great weekend. We're going to get some cool weather next week, so get ready. And thanks again, Vinteum.
Thanks, Peggy. Great job as always.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.